God favors equality, unity, and love. Due to the ugly nature of racism, it prevents people from loving and uniting and treating each other equally. It is God's will for his people to unite and be in peace and love. As the Bible states in 1 John 2 and 9, whoever says that he is in light and still hates his brother is in darkness. A young black man, a recent graduate from a prestigious university, recently applied to a Caucasian law firm. He went through a rigorous interview process and was told that he would be called if the interview process is to continue. He called 2 weeks straight, got the runaround. One day he showed up unexpectedly and inquired about the job that he interviewed for. The receptionist looked him up and down and said snappishly, "It's been filled by someone else." Discouraged as the young man walks away, he hears the receptionist say, "We don't hire your kind anyway." Racism has been a lifelong struggle. Equality has been a lifelong desire. Every person in this society desires to be treated equally despite their ethnicity, race, and gender. No matter your age, you want to be treated equally and not subject to racism. I'm a young, educated African American. There have been several occasions I have been faced with racism. I have experienced it firsthand. I'm a strong believer that racism does still exist, and there are actions that we must take in order to keep racism from rising. We must work to ensure that God's people are treated fairly. As people of God, it is our duty. I will prove my thesis by introducing and supporting 3 main points. My first point will introduce racism through defining it, discussing when it became prominent, and how it is still present. My second main point will discuss how people contribute to racism, and my third main point will discuss the remedies according to Scripture that counterbalance against racism. Many people are unaware of exactly what racism is. The point is, I would explain what racism is, when it became prominent, and how it still affects us today. According to Collins' English Dictionary, racism is defined as a belief or doctrine that inherit differences among the various human race determine cultural or individual achievements. This usually involves the idea that one's own race is superior and has the right to rule over another. According to Lance Selfa of the International Socialist Review, racism is entered America between the 1500s and 1600s with the slave trade. African Americans were brought to the United States against their will, chained down to a boat. They were brought to a country that would judge them on looks, misunderstandings, and an ill-conceived notion that one race has to be supreme and able to rule over another. Racism did not end with the slave trade or with the civil rights movement. Racism is still present in our society today. It is evident in the job world, social environment, and even sometimes in our religious views. People contribute to racism in different ways, and sometimes they are unaware of their contribution. People that contribute to racism may be biased. Racism can be spread to people by thinking that their race, opinions, and ideas are correct and should be honored by everyone. According to researchers from the Georgia Institute of Technology, people even tend to display racism even towards members of their own race. Learned prejudice, from my experience, is based on having or knowing someone who has prior experience with racism. For example, if parents are prejudiced, majority of the times their children are exposed to their beliefs and instill those types of beliefs and behaviors in their children. Ignorance has been one of the main driving forces of continuance of racism. People who refuse to change their beliefs feel that their beliefs are correct and that there is no changing their ways. I compel you to unite and let us together show others that we are all God's children and we are all on one accord to build up His kingdom. There are several remedies that counterbalance racism. These solutions that I will discuss have been put in place already, but in order to get rid of racism, they must be implemented. The educational system can play a role in teaching and about equality among people in the classrooms. As adults, I believe that Bible study can prove to be tremendous sources of understanding. Most people look to their pastors and spiritual advisors if they are confused about affected by racism. Racism is a daily fight, a constant struggle to not judge or behave differently towards someone who is indifferent from you. It is God's will for us to live in harmony, free from judgment, but all uniting in love. With racism still existent as a people, we cannot live in complete unity. It is our duties as servants of God to act and rise against racism. This has been my speech. My name is Lakeem West.